Are you tired of hearing nothing but bad news? Tune into the good news of the gospel. Welcome to Good News with Greg Fritz.
Hello, I'm Greg Fritz and welcome to the Good News program today. We're so glad to have you with us. We are doing a study, a section of teaching on heaven and hell. And we're on the hell part of the teaching, so I just want to forewarn you that we're going to talk about some uncomfortable truths. But I felt compelled to do this. I want to talk about heaven, and we will, but there's been such a hesitancy to talk about hell, and even religious leaders, are avoiding the subject or soft-pedaling it or acting as if it really doesn't matter. And if hell is real, and it's really a possibility, then we ought to be telling people, not to scare them, but just to inform them. The fact that you understand that there's a penitentiary in your state, it shouldn't scare you if you're a law-abiding citizen, but I'd sure like to know about it. I would like to understand the consequences, and I want to know the boundaries. I want to know the rules. And that's not bondage or condemnation, or it shouldn't be frightening. It's just common knowledge. And so to give people enough information to make a choice about their eternity, we as spiritual leaders and teachers and preachers should at least tell people about hell. And you know, there have been some very prominent religious figures that have renounced the idea of hell altogether. And one of the reasons that I want to talk about this is that there's this idea in society today. I mean, I live in the world. I know you can just feel it in the air that, if there is a heaven, that if you just do your best, that everybody's going to go there. You know, when you die, you see this light and it gets closer and closer. And then, angels are there and saints are there and all your friends and family. And that's just not reality. Not everybody goes to heaven. I mean, there's people that go to hell every day. And if I didn't tell you that, then I wouldn't be telling you the whole truth. Heaven is possible. Heaven is available for everybody. No one needs to go to hell. I love something John Osteen used to say all the time, and it kind of puts things in perspective. But he said, if we built hospitals around the world and gave free health care to every person in the world, and they all died and went to hell, what would the point be? He said, if we fed everybody in the world and made sure there was no one else that ever starved or did without food, and they all died and went to hell, what good would it be? He said, if we built colleges in every city in the world and gave free education, a free college degree to every person, and yet they died and went to hell, what good would it be? What would it be worth? And that really does put things in perspective, doesn't it? There is a heaven to gain, and there is a hell to avoid. And this brings us, to this scripture. Psalm 9 verse 17 says this, "The wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God." Man, so what do you have to do to go to hell? Forget God? That's a choice in and of itself. Not choosing God's answer, not accepting His way is a choice. And it says, "The wicked shall be turned to hell, and all the nations that forget God." Now, here's the first point we made in this teaching. And all this teaching is available, by the way, in my study notes on my website. It's called Heaven and Hell. And you can download those free worldwide. People from all over the world are downloading our study notes so they can get this teaching and go over it. I like to tell people this: if you're listening on a smart device or watching on a tablet, you may be driving, you may be listening to this by podcast, and you don't have time or the opportunity to take notes. Well, we've done it for you. We have really extensive notes. My secretary makes them look really professional. They're a lot more sloppy when they come out of my iPad, but she refines them and fixes them up just for you. And you can go download those and find out what all we're teaching on the subject of heaven and hell. And you may be interested in that. But this is the second point. The first point was there is a hell. There really is a hell. And I think we took enough time to prove that. Point number 2 is hell was created for the devil. And I think that's an important point, because some people want to impugn God. They want to blame God. They want to look at God as some evil ogre, that's just sending people to hell. Well, God created hell for the devil. In fact, let's give you a couple scriptures. Matthew 25:41. Then he will say to those on the left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Prepared for the devil and his angels. God didn't want people to go to hell. Let me ask you this. Is it fair for a loving God to send the devil to hell? Have you ever thought about that? If there is a devil, should he go to hell? He's been killing, stealing, and destroying. He's responsible for all the wars, the disease, the poverty, the death. All of the destruction on earth emanates from the devil, the evil one. And hell was created for him. It's a place of confinement. There comes a point in eternity future where Satan has to be separated, evil has to be separated from righteousness. And there had to be a place to put the devil. He can't just roam around free through the streets of eternity to continue to pillage and to steal and destroy and deceive. And he won't be. There's coming a time where he will be put in hell. And that's what hell was created for. And so there is this place of confinement. You could call it the eternal prison, the penitentiary in the spirit. It's for wicked spirits. It's for fallen spirits. It's for devils and demons. And they deserve to go there, and that's where they will spend eternity. And it was created for them. In Isaiah 14:9, another scripture talks about Satan's entrance into hell. It says, hell from beneath is excited about you to meet you at your coming. It stirs up the dead for you, all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Man, that is frightening, isn't it? I mean, that is just as real as you could be. Hell is stirred to meet Satan when he gets cast into hell. There are beings in hell. There are people that are in hell today. There are the devil and his angels, the beast and the false prophet. They're all going to have their place in an eternal hell. In Psalm 88, verses 4 and 5, it says, I'm counted with those who go down to the pit. I am like a man who has no strength, adrift among the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, and are cut off from your hand. And these are some key points about this place of confinement. There is a place in the Spirit for wicked spirits, for evil spirits, for sinful spirits that have not accepted Jesus, that have rebelled against God. Satan was beautiful, perfect. He lived in the presence of God, and because of his beauty, he was prideful and he lifted it. He said, I want to be like God. In other words, he wanted to take God's place. And we're not going to go through all the rebellion of Satan, but it was evil. He turned something beautiful and pure and perfect that God had created, Satan, Lucifer. He rebelled and he became evil, and he became the source of all evil. Well, there had to be a place of confinement, a prison, a penitentiary, so that he can't roam and continue to destroy. And that place is hell. It was created by God, and Satan is going to go there. Consequently, people who don't accept God's offer of forgiveness, people who don't accept God's mercy, and who refuse to accept God's grace, they will go there too, although that's not what God had originally intended. And one of the characteristics of hell is mentioned here. It says, whom you remember no more, and who are cut off from your hand. So these beings in this place of confinement are there forever. And there's no more chance. There's no more chances. And so that's really, to me, that's what makes hell hell, is the fact that God's not there. There's no opportunity to reach God from there. There's no second chances from there. It's a hopeless place. It's a helpless place. It's an eternal sentence. And it's filled with beings that are wicked and corrupt. It's worse than the worst prison on earth. Even in the worst prisons in the world. There's still the hope of parole. There's still mercy available. The presence of God can go into the worst prisons and save and forgive and cleanse. But in hell, that won't be an option. It's a place of eternal banishment from God and from the presence of God and from the hand of God and the mercy of God. It's just the worst place imaginable. But it's real and it exists. So point number 2 is that it was created for the devil. Hell was created for the devil. No man or woman should ever go there because of what Jesus has done. And it's our job as preachers of the gospel to let everyone know the good news. Now, we're not trying to scare people into heaven or scare them out of hell, but if nothing else works, whatever it takes. I mean, sometimes negative reinforcement is good. And I just don't feel like people are qualified or equipped to make eternal decisions with the life hereafter without the knowledge of heaven and hell. You need to know there's both. There's this attitude in our society. You see this happen all the time, that somebody dies that has no evidence no evidence whatsoever that they had any relationship with God, any knowledge of God, any desire for God at all, and they pass away, and their relatives say, well, I know the old man's looking down, like there's not even a chance that they didn't go to heaven. Listen, people do go to hell, and that's just the reality that we live in. And I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, believe me, I want to talk about heaven, and we're going to get there, but hell it's something to be avoided at all costs. In fact, this is our third point, and I'm going to read this, and I'm going to give you a parable that Jesus told that will make this point. Point number 3 is we should avoid hell at all cost. Nothing, no one should keep you from going to heaven. And here's how important it is. Here's how the level of importance Jesus puts on it. In Matthew chapter 5 and verse 29, if your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out, cast it from you. For it's more profitable for you that one of your members perish than for your whole body to be cast into hell. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and cast it from you. It's more profitable for you that one of your members perish than your whole body be cast into hell. In Mark 9, verse 43, Jesus said, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It's better for you to enter life maimed rather than having 2 hands to go to hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched. Matthew 18:8, he says it again. He says, if your hand or foot causes you to sin, cut it off, cast it from you. It's better for you to enter into life lame or maimed than having 2 hands or feet to be cast into everlasting fire. Now, these parables are used to relay important points. And this one is not that you have to cut off all your members to get to heaven. That's not what he's saying. He's saying nothing is more important than you going to heaven. And I want you to let that sink in. And maybe you're saved. If you're watching this program, you probably are. But this is something you can project and you can use on your friends and your family, those around you. Nothing is more important than you going to heaven. And he uses your bodily members as examples, but you could say it this way. If money causes you to sin or keeps you from going to heaven, then get rid of it. If a relationship is leading you to hell, get rid of it. If your hand is leading you to hell, really anything that stands between you and your faith in Jesus should be removed from your life. And obviously it's not going to be your hand or your eye. You don't have to pull your eye out. You just have to put your trust in Jesus. You have to leave sin and leave the relationships that you got to leave. Do what you got to do to serve Jesus, to accept Jesus. And there are some things that you may have to give up. How many people sit in a church service and sit through an altar call where Jesus is presented, where they are told the answer, it's explained to them, and the offer is made, come forward, accept Jesus, and they refuse to go forward? Why? Because maybe they're intimidated, maybe they've got a habit they don't want to give up, maybe they're afraid that, they'd have to quit their job, maybe they have a job maybe they're doing something illegal, and they say, you know what, I just can't go down there, whatever. Listen, it would be better for you to lose your job. It would be better for you to lose all your money. It would be better for you to lose your reputation than to go to hell. There isn't anything in life more important, and I say it this way in the positive. Once you accept Jesus and once you accept His gift of forgiveness and new life, everything else is a bonus. I mean, what else is? I'm going to heaven because I accepted Jesus. Anything else that happens in life is just a bonus. I'm just so thrilled that God gave me a chance to live, to experience life, and an opportunity to choose, and I chose Him. I mean, you can take this out as far as you want to, but think about this. The only way, how could a loving God send people to hell? Well, listen, how could a loving God let people die? They do. People die every day. How could a loving God let people get sick? He does. They get sick all the time. The hospitals are filled with sick. How could God do that? Because of sin. The same is true with hell. God doesn't necessarily send people to hell, sin does. And He's provided the answer, and His name is Jesus. How could a loving God send people to hell? Well, listen, God couldn't have had you if hell wasn't an option. Think about this. God would have stopped creation in the garden. He would have just completely done away with the entire notion of mankind if hell wasn't an option, because the only way God could have a family that satisfied Him and satisfies you and me is to give us a choice, is to allow us to grow up and choose. Adam made the wrong choice. Now everybody after Adam gets to make the right choice, but there's always been two choices, always. It wouldn't have been fair for God to put Adam in the garden and say, look, I've given you a free will, and I'm your only option. That's not the way God wanted humanity. So when He gives us a choice, people are capable of making the wrong choice. And when they do, and they refuse God, and they refuse His love, and they refuse His mercy, then they end up in hell. It wasn't God's doing. He couldn't have had you. He couldn't have had His family if He hadn't given us this option. So it's just one of those things that goes along with the entire program. You can't have good without bad. You can't have up without down. You can't have right without wrong. You can't have heaven without hell. And you can't have heaven and make everybody go there. Why? Because our universe, life as we know it, was not set up that way. It was always based on a choice that every human has a right to make. You get one life to live, no strings attached. God's not going to overwhelm you. He's not going to burden you. He's not going to command you. He's not going to demand that you make the right choice. He's going to allow you and I to choose. And there are two choices. There's Jesus, and then there's life outside of Jesus. And that's the only two choices that exist. There is no place in between. There's no neutral corner. There's nowhere to go after you leave this life other than hell or heaven. Choose life. Isn't that what Joshua said? I set before you life and death. Choose life. God's always made it possible to choose. He's always given us a choice. There's always been an option. And as long as people make that choice, then hell's not going to affect them. We can live our lives without fear or condemnation. But there are millions of people today. Listen, my heart goes out to my generation And I'm concerned that we as leaders have been too concerned about coddling them, telling them what they want to hear, making them feel good about themselves, and refusing to tell them, or at least not telling them, about hell. And when it comes down to it, you ought to know that that is an option. I don't want any of my friends to go into eternity without at least me giving them the chance to make the choice for Jesus. You know, when I was in high school, before I left high school, the Lord began to deal with me. I feel the same way right now as I talk to you in my audience. And believe me, I do love you, and I care for you. I pray for you. I think about you. I prepare these messages for you. And I feel a certain responsibility to you, toward you. I want my audience to be well-rounded. I want you to have the whole truth. I don't want to shade things and give you half-truths because it sounds good. I was about to graduate high school, and I was preaching at the time. I was already preaching every week in my church. I was a children's pastor, and the Lord began to deal with me. And He said, there's certain people in this school that you've grown up with. They're your friends. They like you. You like them. And if you won the lottery, you'd tell every one of them about it, wouldn't you? If you got a new car, you couldn't wait to show them your new car. You do that with your friends, you know. And He said, some of these guys you'll never see again. And you've got the answer. It wouldn't be right for you to walk away without telling them what you know. I said, but Lord, what if they reject me? I mean, why should I? They can go to church. They can get a Bible. What if they reject me? And the Lord dealt with me and said, what if they reject me? He said, it's really not important if they reject you or not. It's all about whether they reject me or not. And I thought, yeah, you know, He's right. I can't leave here without giving my friends, you know, people that knew me and I knew that we'd grown up together, and I prayed for each one, had a list, and I went through the list. And you know, some of them prayed with me and got saved. They're still serving God today. Others said, I'm not ready. And I said, that's fine, I understand. I said, if you ever do get ready, if you ever need help, you can call me. But each and every one, I told them the plan of salvation, and I told them about a place called heaven, and I told them how to get there. It was uncomfortable in a sense, but I knew I'd done the right thing. And I knew that in eternity, they wouldn't be able to point to me and say, you knew this and you never told me. You understood the truth and you didn't tell me, and I thought I was your friend. Well, I told them. It wasn't easy, but it was the right thing to do. We have a generation today that is lost. They're so lost, they don't know their right hand from their left. They're so deceived. Satan is just capitalizing on it. Just breaks my heart. People are mad. There's new movements that arise every day, every week, and they're mad about something and protesting this and trying to get justice. And I'm concerned that we as leaders have done them a disservice. Not saying, you know what, back up just a minute. It doesn't really matter if all these social ills get solved. Are you right with God? Do you know where you would go today if you died? Have you spent even 1 minute of your time preparing for eternity? What does your eternal portfolio look like? What is retirement after this life? Maybe you've got a 401k. Maybe you've done everything right in this life. But what about in the life to come? Do you think you're just going to figure it out when you get there? Because that's no way to go into eternity. There is a way to know and to be sure. There is a way, there's an assurance that you can have, and lay your head on your pillow at night and know that you're right with God, that if Jesus were to come today, you would go to heaven. Man, not only do you need to know that, but you need to let people around you know. We need to let the world know there is a heaven and there's a hell. You know that movie, Heaven is for Real? I appreciate what they're doing and the point that they're making about heaven. I think everybody ought to be more heaven conscious, but I don't think we ought to make everybody think that they're just automatically going to go there. That's some kind of fairy tale. And that if you're just decent, if you just do your best, I'm better than most people, I'm better than my neighbors, or I'm just as good as old so-and-so, or I'm just as good as those hypocrites down at the church. You know what? That's not what gets you to heaven. It's a decision. It's to accept and receive Jesus as Lord of your life. It's the most important decision in anyone's life, and it is personal. And that's what people will tell you as you start to witness. They'll say that, well, religion's personal. And it is personal. It's a personal choice. And everybody else is trying to make you make choices. Everybody else wants you to choose their product or invest your money with them. Why don't we tell people, hey, how about making the choice to go to heaven? How about choosing Jesus? How about that? Let's give Jesus equal time. All you have to do is quit trusting in man and quit trusting in works and quit trusting in other things and put your whole trust in Jesus and what He did for you. Making Jesus Lord is the only way to get to heaven. And if I told you it was otherwise, I'd be lying to you. The fourth point that we're going to make, and we'll have to carry this over into the next program, is that hell is the final abode of the wicked. Now, I'll cover these points again when we get into our next program. But point number 4, it is the final abode of the wicked. In other words, there's nothing after that. That's it. And we're going to take you right up to that point in the future history as the devil, death, Hades, and then the wicked are put into the lake of fire. It's an event that actually is going to happen, and once that's done, it's final. Not to scare you, but I want to be well informed. How about you? Thank you for watching today. We've got study notes, as I said, that you can download. There are other information you can get on our website. Come visit for more teaching. And also, I have this. I didn't mention this. It's called An Encouraging Look at End Time Prophecy. This is end time teaching like you've probably never heard it before. I'll be saying more about this product because it's really, really good teaching if you're concerned or interested in end time prophecy. We make it simple, and we make it so that anybody on any view of end times can listen to it and glean something from it. So that's on our website. You can check that out. Well, we've run out of time for today's program. I'll look forward to seeing you next time, and until then, may God's best be yours.
To order your copy of this series, visit our website, gregfritz.org. It seems bad news is covering the globe these days, yet God has good news for you that's so good the bad news won't matter anymore. To order your copy of Greg's book, visit our website, gregfritz.org.
I'm offering my free No Regrets Scripture study cards, and if you'd like to write in or email us your address, we will mail this to you. Now, it'll have to be within the continental U.S., but I would love to send you my Scripture study cards, No Regrets. They will be a blessing to you. I use these scriptures in my own prayer room as well.
Want more good news? Visit our website anytime, gregfritz.org, for more teaching materials. That's gregfritz.org. We want to thank the partners and friends of Greg Fritz Ministries. Your faithful financial support enables us to produce the Good News program and spread the gospel around the world. If you've been blessed by this program, we invite you to donate and partner with Greg Fritz Ministries. Visit our website, gregfritz.org, and become a partner today. Coming up next on Good News with Greg Fritz.
Satan has got his disinformation campaign ramped up, and he's trying to deceive people. He's trying to keep people angry and distracted and busy, greedy and lustful, and keep them blinded to the truth. And God has made it possible for every single human to make the choice for Jesus and go to heaven.